rules and regulations pertaining to the list of controlled substances for the state of Arkansas. Robert, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This rule is a little bit out of the ordinary how we need to handle this. You actually approved an emergency rule back in November of last year. Some of you may recall that the emergency rules for controlled substances, there is a special law for that, but they run out after 6 months or 180 days. Now, the problem is when you do an emergency rule in November, you run into no legislative committees are meeting because the legislative session occurs started in January. So these particular rules have not been reviewed by a legislative committee, but we need to go ahead and get them filed so that there's minimal lapse from the time the emergency rule may expire and the permanent rule goes into place. They just by chance, they just announced yesterday who the chairs of the Rules Committee will be. That's one of the committees that your rules have to be reviewed by. I haven't reached out to them yet, but I will before we file this to let them know that we're going to go ahead, assuming that you approve this on a permanent basis, that we would go ahead and get this filed, and then it would be reviewed by the committees after filing and after the effective date. We typically don't like to do that, but in this situation, there's really no choice unless we're going to suffer a lapse between the emergency rule and the permanent rule.
Can you tell us who the chair is?
The chair will be Senator David Sanders, will be the chair on the Senate side, and Representative Amy Davis will be the representative from the House. And it'll also have to be approved by the Public Health Committees, and that's Senators Still Bledsoe on the Senate side and Representative Kelly Link on the House side. So I plan to reach out to all of them, let them know it's perfectly legal to file it before it's reviewed. It's just something that we try to avoid in case they have any questions about it. I've seen agencies that do that routinely. A lot of times it doesn't work out very well for them when they show up to get the rule reviewed and it's already in place. Now, just to let you know that there was an amendment to our Constitution, and there was a bill that was filed that's going to change the rulemaking process somewhat. Going forward, as soon as that goes into place, and I believe it will go into place probably July 22nd, when the rest of the rules or when the rest of the acts go into place. These legislative committees will now approve your rules. That's a little bit of a change. Before they reviewed them and would actually have a vote whether or not they reviewed them or not. There was some Supreme Court cases that said they didn't have the authority to stop it because it was an executive function and they were a legislative function. And they were stepping beyond their bounds if they tried to turn it down. That's going to change. They're actually going to be approving the rules. It'll be interesting how that goes forward, but that's not in place yet either. So this rule's kind of fallen into in a strange place, but we need to go ahead. You need your final approval for adoption. We can go ahead and get these filed, and then we'll deal with the legislative committees after that. Be more than happy to answer any questions.
Can we hear a motion of approval?
I move to approve.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Now on to new business.